Hello and welcome to Investment Insight, your clear take on the markets. Let's get started. Today we're launching a deep dive into, well, a really curious phenomenon we're seeing as we close out 2025.
It's a huge paradox, isn't it?
It really is. On the one hand, you have this intense geopolitical rivalry between the US and China. I mean, strict tech blockades, trade barriers, the works.
Right, the door seems slammed shut.
But then on the other hand, certain pathways for innovation and business are not just open, they're incredibly profitable.
And that's the tension we really want to unpack for you today. We're trying to figure out why the U.S. government puts this, hard blockade on something like semiconductors.
National security, right.
Exactly. But then lets life-saving drug IP flow almost freely. And at the same time, why the UK is embracing Chinese EV hardware, it feels contradictory.
But it's not chaos, is it? It's a strategy. We're calling it strategic pragmatism.
That's the perfect term for it. And we're going to break this down in two key areas. First, biopharma, and second, the future of autonomous mobility.
For you, the investor, the real story is that the profits aren't on those blocked highways everyone is watching. They're on these open side trails.
That's where the smart money is going. So let's start with medicine.
All right, segment one, the biopharma paradox. We're calling this one blocking security but flowing life.
And it really is that stark. If you look at the official U.S. policy, the analysis shows it's still an extremely hardline stance.
Yeah.
I mean, this administration is not backing down.
No. The data confirms a really strict blockade on any tech that's seen as critical for national security. So AI tools, quantum computing.
And especially the high-end semiconductor chips. That's the big one. That's the clear red line.
So within that context, in biotech specifically, the focus seems to be on data and manufacturing.
That's right. You see this proposed Biosecure Act mentioned everywhere in the materials.
And what's that really about?
Well, it's designed specifically to prevent Chinese manufacturing organizations, they're called CDMOs and genomics companies, from getting access to sensitive American health data.
So the block is about controlling let's say, the hardware of manufacturing and the sovereignty of our data.
That distinction is absolutely crucial. And you'd think, okay, that makes sense. But then you see the twist.
This is the paradox.
This is the paradox.
Yeah.
Because high-quality new drug molecules developed in China, we're talking advanced cancer treatments, are actively flowing into the West. Big pharma companies are snapping them up.
Okay, so you have to explain that. If we're blocking chips for national security and CDMOs for data security, why are we enthusiastically buying advanced medicine developed by the very same country?
There are two big reasons.
Okay.
The first one is, let's call it political and humanitarian.
Okay.
With all the healthcare pressures we're facing, serious drug shortages, especially for cancer.
Mm-hmm.
The political argument is pretty powerful. Some analysts in the materials put it simply, there is no nationality in treating cancer.
It's hard to argue against that. That's the diplomatic cover, so to speak. But what's the real financial strategy here?
No, that's the part that's fascinating for investors. It's a strategy of, well, innovation arbitrage.
Innovation arbitrage. What do you mean by that?
It means buying highly complex, effective intellectual property, like a new drug, that poses zero direct security threat, and critically, acquiring it at a highly distressed price.
And that distressed price is possible because of what's happening inside China's economy right now.
Precisely. The data shows Chinese biotech ventures are in a severe funding crunch. The 2025 economic slowdown, deflation, it's hitting them hard.
And they can't just list on NASDAQ like they used to, right?
That path is effectively blocked. U.S.-China tensions have made raising Western capital almost impossible for them.
So they might have world-class research, but they have a massive cash flow problem.
It's a pressure cooker, and it forces these brilliant companies into what are called license-out strategies. They have to sell the rights to their drugs to survive.
And that's where Big Pharma, with its deep pockets, comes in.
They step in as the only real buyer. It's basically a fire sale on top-tier R&D.
Can you walk us through how a deal like that is structured, let's say for a company like AstraZeneca?
Sure. A typical deal highlighted in the analysis looks something like this. A Chinese firm has a breakthrough molecule. AstraZeneca comes in and gives them, say, $100 million up front.
Just $100 million. That sounds low for a breakthrough drug.
It is, but that's survival cash.
Yeah.
That keeps the lights on. It pays the scientists. The real money, maybe $1.9 billion, is tied up in potential milestones.
Which means they only get that money if the drug passes years of incredibly expensive and risky global clinical trials.
Exactly. Big Pharma is essentially buying the core idea for cheap and then funding the risky, expensive part themselves, but in return, they get the exclusive global rights
So they're de-risking the whole process for themselves.
and getting a bargain. It's seen globally as a huge technology transfer, driven purely by China's capital problems.
Okay, that makes financial sense. But how do these companies navigate the political side of it? Doesn't it look a bit opportunistic?
It does, which is why their strategy is so sophisticated. Firms like AstraZeneca, who know the Chinese market inside and out, they use a two-track strategy.
Two-track.
Yeah. Track one is China internal. They partner with local firms, they do joint development, and they target the massive Chinese domestic market.
Okay, so they're playing the local game. What's track two?
Track two is global. They take those exclusive global rights, and then they market the drug entirely under their own brand name: Merck, Novartis, AstraZeneca. For the Western consumer, any made-in-China stigma is just gone.
Wow. So they profit from both markets by balancing on that tightrope of U.S.-China tensions.
Which brings us right to the investment insights.
Insight number one seems pretty clear. You should be long big pharma. Investing directly in those small Chinese biotechs is just too risky. Delisting, sanctions, anything could happen.
Absolutely. Don't bet on the seller. Bet on the entity doing the shopping. Think AstraZeneca, AZN, Novartis, NVS, and Merck, MRK. You're betting on the arbitrage structure itself.
So the Chinese lab does the high-skill work on a budget, and the Western giant handles the high-margin commercialization.
That's the play. Which leads to insight number two. You have to differentiate what you're buying. Avoid the companies targeted by the Biosecure Act, the manufacturing and data firms, the CDMOs.
Focus on the acquirers who are just buying the pure intellectual property, the IP.
Exactly. And the final insight number three is to focus on the specific tech where China is genuinely leading. We're talking about antibody-drug conjugates, or ADCs.
For listeners who aren't familiar, what exactly is an ADC?
Think of it like a guided missile for cancer. You have an antibody that acts as the guidance system. It finds the cancer cell, and it's attached to a drug, the conjugate, which is the powerful chemical payload. It delivers the poison right to the target.
And China is strong in that specific field.
They are a powerhouse in ADC and bispecific antibody research, so the pharma companies buying up those pipelines are really securing their future growth engine.
That is a perfect breakdown. Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from drug molecules to electric vehicles. Same idea, different industry.
Exactly. From molecular platforms to mobility platforms, it's the same kind of calculated engagement.
And it's another huge contrast. The US and the EU are putting up huge tariffs on Chinese EVs. There's a lot of political heat.
A ton of it.
Yet, the UK, a close US ally, is basically rolling out the red carpet for China's BYD to supply fleets in London. Why are they making that choice?
The answer is pure strategic pragmatism, especially after Brexit. You have to remember, unlike the US or Germany, the UK doesn't really have any big domestic mass-market car brands left to protect.
Well, their priorities are different.
Completely.
Yeah.
They need two things. First, to meet their very aggressive environmental goals, like carbon net zero, and to lower transport costs in a city like London.
And the second thing?
They need the cheapest, most efficient hardware they can find to hit their goal of commercializing autonomous driving. The Automated Vehicles Act of 2024 basically mandates robotaxis by 2026.
So if you want to build a self-driving fleet quickly and cheaply, you need BYD's cars. Right now.
You need them now. So the UK's calculation is simple. Let the cheap Chinese hardware in, but make sure Western firms keep total control over the platform, the software network, and the data sovereignty.
That sets up a really interesting competition in the UK between the big US tech players, doesn't it? Let's talk about Waymo versus Tesla.
It's a fascinating contrast. The materials describe Waymo, which is owned by Alphabet, as taking the slow and steady approach.
What does that actually look like on the streets of London?
It means they are laser-focused on the autonomous software driver. For over 2 years, they've just been gathering data, and not easy data. We're talking about narrow British roads, complex roundabouts, things that are a nightmare for AI to navigate.
So much harder than a simple grid system in a US city.
A whole different ballgame. And they're working directly with Transport for London, TfL, to get the official permits for true unsupervised driving. It's all about high trust, high compliance.
Meanwhile, it sounds like Tesla's Cybercab is hitting some major roadblocks in Europe.
It is. They're running into much stricter safety regulations over there, specifically the UNECE standards. It's not like the US, where it's more of a self-certification model.
So they're actually behind Waymo in getting that key unsupervised approval.
They are. And they've had to pivot. Their alternative strategy now is to use their huge trove of driving data to partner with UK insurers and create new kinds of insurance products for autonomous driving.
a classic data monetization play. If you can't get the main product approved, sell the data from trying.
And that brings us right back to the central investment thesis for mobility. The big message here, especially when you see Uber and Lyft partnering with BYD, is this. The platform is king. It's so much more valuable than the hardware.
You're betting on the network that moves people, not the factory that makes the car.
Think about capital efficiency. Uber doesn't spend billions building cars. They take the cheapest, most reliable car, BYD in this case, and just plug it into their global network.
That's a huge advantage over a company that has to design and build the car itself.
It's massive. Hardware is becoming a commodity. The real value, the real margin, is in the platform.
Okay, so that leads to insight number 2.
Yeah,
You need to watch China's B2B pivot.
exactly. Direct-to-consumer sales, B2C, are getting blocked by tariffs. So firms like BYD are getting into Western markets through the back door. B2B sales, selling to fleets, to Uber, to rental companies.
And that generates a lot less political backlash.
Way less. You're just solving a city's transport problem. For investors, you have to watch for those B2B partnership announcements. That's the key.
And a final insight, number 3. The UK is the catalyst for this whole sector.
It's a test bed. If the UK really does allow commercial robotaxis in the first half of 2026, that will trigger a wave of regulatory changes across Europe.
Because it proves the tech is viable under the strictest Western standards.
Right. And that moment will be a huge catalyst for autonomy stocks.
Mm.
We're talking Alphabet, Tesla, Uber, and Mobileye. Keep your eyes on the UK.
So let's bring it all together. The biopharma paradox, the mobility pragmatism. What's the one big takeaway for investors at the end of 2025?
It's that while politics fights over the big headline issues, ideology, national security, semiconductors, practical business, it does not stop, especially for necessities like medicine and transport,
So investors need to look past the blocked highways everyone else is focused on.
and find the profits on these open side trails. The biolicensing deals, the mobility platforms, that's where the action is.
The smartest players, then, are the ones leveraging the cheapest, highest quality resources, whether that's Chinese drug IP or Chinese EV hardware, and pairing it with a superior Western platform or distribution network.
That's the new global supply chain in a nutshell. And it leaves you with a really critical question to ask yourself as an investor. When a key component becomes a commodity, are you betting on the people who make the commodity, or are you betting on the players who master the arbitrage?
Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.